Hey, everybody, welcome to the True North podcast brought to you by MediRoutes. I'm your guide, Morgan Landry, and I'm here to help our NEMT community navigate a path to success. We've all gone off course at times, had things not work as planned, or wondered which way to go next with our business. On this podcast, our community helps each other on the journey. I bring on experienced professionals from the non emergency medical transportation world to answer your questions and share the strategies that help them focus on their patient service while overcoming obstacles and growing. And today's guest comes at NEMT from a little bit different angle than most. He doesn't run a fleet, but he's walked into a lot of them. He's the Director of Sales West for Broda Seating. Ed Banda, thank you for joining us today. I know y'all make the seating that ends up in the wheelchair vehicles across the industry, and really excited to have you today.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you mind starting with the quick version? Like, what does Broda do, and what do you do at Broda?
Broda is a wheelchair manufacturer that's been around for over 43 years. And what we've really excelled in and become the experts in is seating related to long-term care facilities. And in fact, if you look at every one of our products, whether it's one of our transportation chairs or whether it's our clinical chairs, it all comes back to being specialized in the long-term care environment. So, for example, if you take our transportation chair, it is literally just a beefed up version of a clinical chair, and that's what makes it comfortable and a little bit different than anything else that's out there.
That's exciting. You've been in this for since 1996.
Yeah.
And how'd you get into medical sales in the first place?
So many years ago, as I was coming out of the military, I was afforded an opportunity to work in a surgical environment. And what I found was that it was very much the type of environment where thinking fast and thinking clearly was a huge benefit. If there's anything that the military teaches you, is how to come to a decision fast and make it stick, and it better be right, or adjust off of it really fast. So in a surgical environment, it worked out very well. And as life goes on, you make different moves, and I ended up in the seating world probably back in the 2007 2008 timeframe. And I was blessed to eventually get picked up first by Invacare, which was a very famous company in the DME space, and then graduated to Broda, which, like I said, it's kind of its own unique animal in this industry. And so, really, the whole thread kind of tying all these strange experiences between military surgical sales is sort of this drive that we have to be able to help and to serve people. And sometimes it's hard to see. We all have a story. For me, the first time I saw what we jokingly refer to as the Broda face, when you actually help somebody and you can see that you visibly changed their life in that moment, I got to tell you, there's not a whole lot that's more rewarding than that.
Absolutely. It's almost selfish because the feeling you get is really it's so great. And when you solve that problem, so many things get better.
Isn't that amazing? And so that's been our experience too. In fact, how could you not like this business?
Great reason to be doing things, right? So I want to ask you a little bit about your time on the NEMTAC Vehicle Advisory Board. So I know you're
Sure.
a co-chair there as of recently. Congratulations on that, because
Thank you.
for most of our listeners, I think someone will know what NEMTAC is, but can you maybe go into what NEMTAC is and why being on the Vehicle Advisory Board is such a big deal?
Sure, absolutely. In fact, I've become a huge proponent personally of NEMTAC. I think there's a lot of us that, as they continue to grow and have visibility, the adoption of some kind of standard in our industry is going to be good for everybody, not just the operators, but also for the passengers and the patients who have to ride in those vehicles. Because I think we've probably all seen the fractured industry where there are no standards. There's some people who take pride in running a real professional organization, and I've also seen the opposite. And you just hope and pray that they did securement properly, that there's something positive going on here. But the ability to assign standards to the NEMT industry, whether it's codified or adopted as standard operating procedures, whatever, can only help the entire industry, not just in its reputation, but in terms of its safety and everything else. And so, I've been involved with NEMTAC for a while, always working with Peter Hicks, the executive director of NEMTAC, who's fantastic and pretty much a real visionary when it comes to the direction and influence of NEMTAC. And when I was asked to be on the committee and then co-chaired the committee, which is the Vehicle and Equipment Safety Advisory Committee, one of the subcommittees under NEMTAC, I jumped at the opportunity because even though we provide something that is directly influenced by that, I think that being able to get a consensus on what safety standards should apply with vehicles and equipment, I think is going to be key to the future. Some people don't realize this, but if you have standards and they're adhered to, then theoretically you should see an improvement in safety. Well, if you see an improvement in safety, you can see lower operating costs, lower insurance rates, things like that. There's a whole lot of costs that can go down if you spend a little bit on the safety side of the equation. And I think that's kind of what we all want to happen. So one of the first orders of business of this committee is to come up with a reference document. Here are all the standards that apply to the vehicles and to the wheelchairs and to, whatever is involved with those things. So once we can all agree, this is where those safety standards exist, now we can start talking about how do we disseminate that and kind of make a standard operating plan, especially for new people who are lost.
Oh, absolutely. Because you see everything from like, can I just put a chair in the back of the vehicle? Do I need a wheelchair? Can I just put like a lawn chair is like the scariest thing you'll see because people just don't know any better. And I think having a strong authority like NIMTAC, so it is setting the standards. And really, as long as the NMT's been around, there hasn't been something like this until NIMTAC came along years ago. I know it hadn't been that many years, but it's here and it's come a long way. And I think having somebody that is, not a broker, not a transportation provider, not an insurance company, setting all these standards is really important because they don't have a vested interest one way or the other. They just want it to be better for the whole community and for all the people that it does serve. Because I think you hit the nail on the head. If you have safe vehicles and safe ways to secure people in those vehicles, via the chairs and the straps and all those things, you don't have accidents. You don't have people getting hurt. You don't have people going out of business because they can't afford their insurance. It's cascading. And I know since I've been in the industry, insurance has been a big problem. I mean, I'm from Louisiana, which is a horrible insurance state. It's just always has been. But I think this is the fix for it. It's not an easy fix and it's not a quick fix. But changing those standards, it's sometimes like if you're a startup operator, it's hard to not only know that, but also like sometimes it's more difficult to follow those standards when you're starting up. You just want to get on the road and go take trips. But if you have those standards to look at and you take the time to follow them, you're going to run such a better business. And eventually you, along with everybody else that's in the industry, is going to drive the cost down to run it so that it can be more
Yeah,
sustainable for everyone. The better the standard, the higher standard,
sure.
the happier people are going to be when they get transported. Is there a goal with the advisory board to have the standards by a certain time, or are you revising the standards now, or how does that all work? Like,
So what we've done is we created the first reference document, which is going to be a living, breathing document. If the standards change, if, NHTSA or somebody decides, hey, we want our vehicles to conform to this, we need bigger brake pads or, whatever it is, that's not going to change the reference points. All it does is, hey, by the way, the standards have changed within this framework that we've created. So this is where you find that information. If they change the rule and the rule number changes, whatever, we'll make the change in the document itself. It's going to reside in the resources side of NEMTAC that any operator can access and just start double checking that they're doing things the right way. And I don't know if you've ever had a chance to go onto NEMTAC and see what their accreditation standards are for people who have full accreditation. It's pretty tough, and it kind of ensures that if you're doing this business, you're kind of committed to it. You're committed to doing the right
it's a
thing.
lot of work.
It is.
It's comprehensive, but I think it's a good thing. I think it does make sure that you're not just somebody in it for the wrong reasons or trying to do fly by night operations. The people that go through that accreditation are serious about providing a quality product to the people they serve. And I think that's what's so important about it. Is it does not everybody has to do it to be in the industry, and I think that's what the cool thing about it is. It allows people to set themselves apart. Well, so I've got to ask you this question because it's
Sure.
my favorite question to ask people. It's like, so the name of the podcast is True North, and my question to you is, what is your true north? Like, what guides you in work and life, and are there any lessons that you kind of picked up along the way that you want to share with our listeners?
I kind of alluded to it earlier. What makes you get up in the morning and do this? And truthfully, I can say it's a desire to help people and, make things better. But I think there's an even higher principle than that. I want to feel like I made a difference, you know, that I was here, I contributed to whatever I did the best way I could, and it made a difference to somebody that I existed. So whether it's, participating on an NEMTAC committee or, you know, right now as a sales director, I've got a great team underneath me, and I always credit them with our success because we're doing so well right now and being able to help them get there. And if I can make a difference in their success, that's really the most important thing that, hits right here and hits right here. You know, that's really what it
It's
is.
a win right there.
It is,
And I
right?
think that actually leads pretty well into our listener question for this week, where we've
Okay.
got from Facebook, Tasha in Texas says, I run a small NEMT operation, and when I think about where to spend money, seating is usually the last thing on my list. Am I underestimating the value of the seats in the vehicle? And how much does it actually matter when you're doing these rides? So, Ed, I think you're the perfect person to answer this. Take it away, please.
No, and I think that's an excellent question because traditionally in non-emergency medical transportation, seating really wasn't a consideration. If you ask an insurance company if they require the proper tie down systems in a vehicle, absolutely. You can't get insured if you don't have the proper tie down systems. And then I ask the question, well, what about the seating system? What about it? Do you know what's going into that vehicle? No. Isn't that kind of important too? And so slowly the industry started paying attention to that part of the equation. But for a small operator, cash flow is going to be incredibly important. So it's important that you make the right moves right away. Clean vehicles, good training, proper systems are going to be the most important things that you do. Yeah, seating systems probably secondary because in this case, there's no law that says you have to use something like what we do or anything else out there in particular. But once you start projecting the image of your business, it's either going to be you're projecting the image of cutting corners or you're projecting the image of, hey, we're bigger than we really are, and that's where it becomes important. If everything else stays the same, no accidents, no whatever, that's fine. But at some point, looking at your seating systems is going to be important because, especially since Tasha's from Texas, ambulatory or wheelchairs are your only choices. You can't do stretcher rides in Texas. And so, unless you make the commitment to being a full blown ambulance, which that's a whole other ball game, right? Um, so I would say make sure that your systems and processes are in order. That's where you come in from meta routes because that's going to be incredibly important that they get that part right, that they're operating efficiently, and then start looking at some of the things that we do, not just from a perception, but from a safety standpoint, because the industry is going to go there someday.
I I think it is. I think that'll really help Tasha with what she's looking at because I think investing in yourself and your company is really where that goes. Is like, yes, it matters because that's it. So I've got one last question for you today, and that is one that I like to ask everybody, and is so what's you've been around transportation providers for a long time, and I think you'll have a unique aspect of looking at this. Is what's one piece of advice that you would give to people whether they're starting out or trying to grow their fleet? Something that maybe you learned from working alongside people in the industry for all these years. It's not obvious.
It's funny because I had not thought of the answer to this question, but to me, it actually is obvious. I look at some of the best operators that we see at the NEMTAC conference and TTA, Transportation Alliance and stuff like that. And what's the common thread that I've seen successful people do besides their process? And that's the perception of their business. The best operators that I know have clean vehicles. Everything's in good working order. They have a system for everything that they do to make sure that their drivers, their vehicles, and their equipment all look good. Because when you roll up on a facility, again, in a van that's dirty and hasn't been washed in a while and that has like mailbox lettering on the side for your company name, versus a nice looking vehicle and everybody's dressed professionally, all of your systems run smooth, just that perception alone, I think, probably can help you grow more than anything else. Perception's reality, right?
That's great. And speaking of NIMTAC, I think that's what's so great about it is you can go get access to those people by attending the conferences, attending the meetings. You're going to be standing next to guys that have already done a lot of the things that you're looking to do, and you can see how they do it. And most of them are willing to share because it is such a big industry that at NIMTAC, you could be across the country from someone, but you're all in the same place right there, and you're not a competition for them for the most part. You're somebody in a different state that they just like talking to, and they're willing to give you as much advice as you're willing to listen to most of the time. I've spoken to a few of those guys, and they sure will tell you anything you want to know, and they're happy to share it because they know what they're doing is a good thing, and it's going to be hard to beat.
100%. And again, you and I, if I don't even have to say names, and I bet you we're probably thinking the exact same handful of people that present themselves that way and that are happy to help others, you know.
Oh yeah,
That's who
it's
they are, and that's what this industry is. And it's wonderful because you don't see that in every industry. Usually people are too competitive to give away their secrets. In this case, man, you get some good advice from good people, and join some of these forums, find the right ones that have great advice, and and learn from them because people are willing to help you. But do your homework too,
that's it.
right? Prepare for it
That's
and
it.
do your
Well,
homework.
that's it. That's absolutely it because I do see that a good bit where people expect it to be handed to them on a silver platter, and
Yeah,
that doesn't go as well. If you go in with a very specific question or specific problem that you've thought through and kind of can walk them through it, they'll tell you everything they learned over the past 20 years, and you may have been at it a year or two or whatever, it may not have even started yet. But if you clearly have thought it out, they'll walk you through anything you need to.
yeah,
If you come in and just say, "Tell me what to do," you get a whole different reaction. I think having that curiosity in yourself of like trying to figure out how you want to solve it, but then if you hit a roadblock,
yeah,
being able to have somebody you can call and reach, I think that's incredible. That's what I do like about the industry is it is the kind of there's enough for everybody kind of mentality. Not
100%. Yeah.
well, I think we've reached the end of the road for today, Ed. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me,
Oh yeah, glad to have you, of course. And this is Ed Bandas or Eddie Broda, Director of Sales West at Broda Seating. And if you want to find him on LinkedIn, we've also got some link in the show notes. Ed, is there anything else you want to share with the listeners before we wrap?
No, I think, yeah, I can't wait to see everybody out there at NEMTAC and some of the other places. And there's nothing more fun to me than going out to the field and meeting people and seeing how they've been successful. So I wish that success for everybody, man. If I can help you do that, I'm going to help you do that. So that's what we do, right?
Uh, it absolutely is, and I know you mean it honestly. So, well, thanks everybody for joining us on another edition of the True North podcast, brought to you by MediRoutes. Our software works for one driver, an entire fleet to streamline scheduling, dispatching, billing, and more. So you either start a new business or grow your fleet. Tune in next time and navigate your path to success with MediRoutes.